Father Martin had a truly special gift. He could take the inherently complex disease of addiction and break it down into concepts that made profound sense to those suffering. His ability to simplify without dumbing down was unparalleled. What set Father Martin apart was that he spoke not from the pedestal of the clergy, but from the hard-earned wisdom of living at rock bottom himself, drowning in the bottle. He knew the anguish of addiction firsthand. This made his teachings on the neurobiology and science of the disease resonate deeply, because he explained it in ways the most downtrodden soul could understand. During his time, Father Martin's treatment center was regarded as a worldwide leader, not for fancy frills, but for giving patients precisely what they desperately needed to hear. He didn't coddle them with niceties they wanted to hear. He gave them the frank truths they needed to hear, delivered with signature charm, wit, and humility. Father Martin viewed addiction as a sickness of the soul, and wasn't afraid to shine light on the mental, emotional, and spiritual brokenness at its core. With compassion, he could navigate utterly emotionally bankrupt individuals in active addiction's grip to a place of hope. To Father Martin, saving lives wasn't a business pursuit, but a genuine calling. As the addiction treatment field became increasingly watered down over the years, his voice remains crucial. A reminder to get back to treating the disease's actual root causes that rob individuals of their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. His philosophies were simple but powerful. Treat the primary problem first, and treat it completely. The best therapy came from giving patients the right information to fully understand their condition. He famously said, "The best treatment center is your last," holding firm to the belief that quality care provided in a single treatment experience could set someone squarely on the lifelong path of recovery. Through his teachings from the trenches of addiction's worst suffering, Father Martin helped heal countless lives. He embodied the idea that sometimes the wisest words come from the darkest of experiences, followed by education, empathy, and an unwavering focus on holistic healing of mind, body, and spirit.
I would like to just make a few comments about a slogan that you hear all through the field of alcoholism, and it's one of Al-Anon's favorite sayings: detach with love. From what I heard and what I hear, I think a lot of people understand exactly what that means, because they are conscientious enough to read Al-Anon literature, especially those brief, short little pamphlets that are just magnificent. Number one, they're free. Number two, they're brief. Number three, they are written by pros who have been there. And I think that that literature is absolutely invaluable. What I would like to do this evening is to share some of the things that I've picked up, not only reading their literature, but listening to folks in Al-Anon, to see what that phrase means, detach with love. Because I do know that very, very often desperately sick people either give their own erroneous interpretation to it, or they listen to wrong meanings, swallow it, pass it on. Detach with love, I think, does not mean abandon with hatred. And you and I think, both know of instances where people who are told to detach simply slice themselves off from the victim of alcoholism in the home. It certainly does not mean to desert with cynicism, nor does it mean to ignore with utter contempt. And I think we see that done, and I'm not saying that in any condemnatory way. Ladies and gentlemen, sick people do sick things. I think the tragedy is that very often they think they're doing the right thing. I believe that desperate to be out from under the pain, some folks listen to and grab a hold of things that kind of justify them in copping out from all involvement in the problem of which now they are a part. What do you mean by detach? It certainly doesn't mean detach from the person. Look, a loved one is a loved one. You do not abandon those who have been a part of your life in such an intimate way. You do not desert them. Often, I think we've all heard, compare this disease to other diseases. Would you desert someone dying of cancer? Would you desert someone with an attack of emphysema where they could hardly breathe? And you're shocked to hear that, and rightly so. Why is it that we are looking for some reason to be separated from all the pain caused, as we think, by this person, but actually caused by his behavior? And that's a fine distinction, but a very necessary one if we're to survive. What we do is stick to, as long as we can, stick to the person and try to find out what we must separate ourselves from if we are to survive. I have to draw a basic distinction between the disease and the behavior dictated by it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you know me. You know I've been around doing things like this for a lot of years. I'd like to share something with you that I think is important. I was in a restaurant in California some years ago with a couple, friends of mine. We were just seated, and as I sat and looked around, there was a booth about, couldn't have been more than 10 yards from where we were, not quite 10 yards from where we were. Seated in that booth, a man, a woman, and 3 little children, like stair steps. They were perhaps 8, 9, and 10 years old. The man and his wife were having an argument which was obvious. What was also obvious to me, sitting on the table between those two, was a bottle with about this much wine in the bottom of it. And he was shaking his finger in her face. She would say something. They were very quiet. It was not a loud argument. And I'm sitting there watching. Of course, it's like an accident on the road. We're mesmerized by it, and I was struck by this, and my eyes were glued to it. He said something this way. She responded to him, and out of the blue, boy, my heart went right up my throat. Bang! He slapped her right across the face. Boy, my heart started to race. The little girl, the youngest of the 3 children, on the end of the 5, got up and walked away and walked right by my table. He yelled at her, "Come back here!" And boy, every head in that area turned to see what that was about. My friends, I saw that little girl's face as she passed not 3 feet from me. One look at her face, and I wanted to hurt him. I really wanted to hurt him. I'm positive, like all youngsters with big hearts, she will live to forgive her father for that, if the day ever comes. But until the day she dies, it is branded in her memory. She saw her father hit her mother. As the argument wore on, another child got up ready to leave, and he ordered him to sit down. As we left the restaurant, I told the maitre d' what was going on, and from that day to this, I don't know what happened. Do you know it took me a full 10 minutes before, now I had been piddling around in this field for 20 years, and it took me 5 minutes to make myself ask this question: would any man in his right mind have done that? It's obvious to me he was an alcoholic. I have no doubt of that in my mind. That was one single incident involving two people I don't even know. How about someone that I live with? How about someone whose behavior has been such as to alienate me, to bewilder me, to make me hostile and angry and almost full of hatred? Sometimes it is a complete impossibility to separate the disease, which is not immoral, from the behavior, which usually always is. Through sheer, pure education, learn that what is involved is a disease, it is addiction. This person is drinking or using beyond control. There is no control over it. There is no such thing as willpower involved in it. And his behavior is practically dictated by his illness. This is what I must do, is kind of separate my attitude from all of this horrible behavior and simply see it as sick behavior, rather than something that is calculated to anger me and turn me away and hurt me. I have to detach myself from my own enabling practices. We've spoken about that elsewhere. It is spoken about often in every single facet of Al-Anon. I must not make myself a part of the destruction of someone I love. And when I learn and learn and learn, I find out that much of what I've been doing has been enabling him to get worse. And that's simply irrational behavior. But kindness prompts me to do the things that I do for the alcoholic. And it is awfully hard for me to see that kind acts can hurt. And yet, we've all heard this, haven't we? Long before alcoholism ever came into being, to kill with kindness. And we do. I have to separate myself and detach from nagging that does no good. Did you ever nag somebody out of a toothache? You don't. You advise them to see a dentist. You don't nag someone out of cancer. You advise them to get to a hospital to see a physician, to get proper therapy. And so often, we just yell at somebody when we're in pain. You're an alcoholic, you're a drunk. And I've often said that a good confrontation is not just telling somebody he's got something wrong with him, but supplying a possible answer also. And even when you do that, it's liable to be rejected. But nagging is useless. I remember once a psychiatrist was talking to a lady. He said, she was terribly frustrated. He said, "You keep nagging your husband to stay home at night." She said, "Yes." He said, "Why?" She said, "I want my children to have a father." Please listen to the following conversation. Supposing you were to nag him enough that he would feel forced to stay at home with you and the children against his will, what would you have gained? Well, she said nothing. He said a whole lot less than nothing. Now watch the following conversation. Does nagging help? She said no. He said, "Don't nag." Oh. Have you ever done something constantly, day after day after day? It just doesn't work. And we keep doing it. It's like the alcoholic who keeps climbing into a ring every day of his life with a champion, gets beat up. And he keeps doing it. And little kid says, "You don't want to get beat up?" "No, don't get in the ring." Manipulating. Manipulating the children to act in a certain way, to say certain things, to refrain from saying certain things, because we don't want old dad to get upset and get angry and drink. And so we're helping old dad to continue in his illness and making the children sicker and sicker and sicker because we're teaching them to live a lie. We're teaching them to deny themselves into doing what they see should be done. A refusal to be manipulated. Well, I dare not do this, he might drink. I dare not say that, he might drink. I may be the cause of this, that, or the other thing. No. His disease causes him to drink, and I have to learn that. I am dealing with a disease that forces its victims to do something against their will, and I am not guilty. I'm not guilty. I'm just caught up into this whirlpool. A refusal to act. I have to pull myself away from this negative business. There are some things that I should do. There are some conditions I should lay down. And the more and more and more I enter into the therapy of AA and find out that of Al-Anon and find out that I'm worth something, then I put a price tag on myself. What am I worth more than this? A woman, for example, who tolerates physical beatings. A woman who tolerates infidelity. That is simply wrong. Tolerating it approves of it. Tolerating it condones it. Well, I don't believe I could support myself if I left. I've just got to stay here. I don't want to. What would you do if he keeled over dead? So often I think we use the cop-out, the easy way out, to prevent ourselves from doing something difficult. I have to separate myself from trying to fix everything.